heart has coronary arteries. There's one on top and one on the bottom, and they break up into various branches. It is these particular branches that get clogged where they have to do the bypass. And this here, if we were looking at maybe a human, it would be the anterior coronary and a posterior coronary. On a four-legged organism, it would be the ventral coronary and the dorsal coronary. I will not insist that you learn whether it's dorsal or ventral. If you just learn coronary artery, I'm happy. That feeds the heart. Now, the aorta is the major artery that goes through the body. It has the largest diameter, and it leaves the heart, and it goes up. And this is the ascending aorta. And then it arches over. This is called the aortic arch. And then it arches down. This is the descending aorta. And then there are branches that go to the ribs. Those particular branches are called the intercostal arteries. If we have one A down, it's single, artery. If we have two A's, it's arteries. Now, costal means ribs. So these are the arteries that will feed the musculature of the ribs. And once we get below the diaphragm, we're in the abdominal area of the body. So above the diaphragm, you have the thoracic aorta. Below the diaphragm, you have the abdominal aorta. Once we get below the diaphragm, there is one particular blood vessel that comes off called the celiac artery. Coeliac. It's also spelled without the O, simply Celiac artery. That is the major artery that comes off right after the diaphragm. And it comes off here. And then you have the anterior mesenteric artery and so forth. Now, going back to what we have here. When we have the aortic arch, the ascending aorta and the aortic arch, there are three blood vessels that come off. One particular blood vessel from here to here is very, very short. It's called the so-called innominate artery. That was its first name. Innominate means without a name, that's all. And they eventually named it the brachiocephalic artery. Brachiocephalic artery and the innominate artery are the same thing. They're very short. And then this branches. One branch goes up the neck, and that is what we call the right common carotid artery. Way, way up here, it'll break into something called the external carotid, which feeds the face, and there's a lot of arterial flow in the face. This is why if you have a facial injury, you bleed a lot. You see this in boxers all the time. Then you have an internal carotid up here that goes and feeds the brain. Now, the second vessel that comes off the aortic arch is the vessel which is the left common carotid, the common carotid artery. You don't have another innominate artery. There's only one, or a brachiocephalic artery. So this goes up and it breaks into an external carotid and an internal carotid. External carotid goes into the face, and the internal carotid goes to the brain. And then there is a blood vessel that comes off here and goes into the arm. There was a vessel that came off here and went into the arm. It is underneath the clavicle. This here is the clavicle, so it is sub. We use the term sub if it's under something, like a submarine is a vessel underneath the surface of the ocean. So this is the clavicle. It is subclavian artery. The subclavian arteries always feed the arms, or with four-legged animals, the anterior appendages. So we have a right subclavian artery here going into the right leg, the left subclavian artery going into the left leg. We have the intercostal arteries feeding the musculature between the ribs. Then we go past the diaphragm. Below the diaphragm is called the abdominal aorta. The first vessel that comes off is the celiac artery. That breaks into 4 blood vessels. One is the gastric artery that goes to the stomach. Gastric means stomach. The second is a hepatic artery. That means liver. The liver is a very, very large organ. Requires a lot of blood. Then there is the splenic artery that goes to the spleen, and then the pancreatic artery that goes to the pancreas. So there are 4 of these. You have to sort of follow them through and see what organ they go to tell you which one it is. Now we go down a ways, and there's the anterior mesenteric artery. The anterior mesenteric artery goes to the small intestine. Now, if we look over here, we have then the coronary artery, the heart, we have over here the subclavian, right common carotid, left common carotid, left subclavian. And then we have the diaphragm. Below the diaphragm, we have the celiac coming off. We have 4 places here. We have one going to the stomach, gastric artery, one going to the liver, hepatic artery, one going to the spleen, splenic artery, one going to the pancreas, pancreatic artery. The second artery that comes off is the anterior mesenteric artery that goes to the small intestine. Then we get down here, and there are 2 arteries that come off in different places. In one area, it is lower and the other area is higher, and these go to the kidneys. So the kidneys are called renal, they're also called nephric. Nephric is the name used that is of Greek derivation, renal is of Latin derivation. So the renal arteries take blood to the kidneys. Then you go down, and there are 2 arteries that come off in different areas of the aorta. These are the iliolumbar arteries. The iliolumbar is down here in this area where the aponeurosis is located. And this goes to the musculature that is the back musculature. These are the iliolumbar arteries. Then when we get down further, there is a posterior mesenteric artery that comes off that brings blood to the large intestine. And then when we go a little further, there is a break and the arteries go into the legs. And these are the iliac arteries, feed blood into the legs. They break up into femoral arteries and things of that type. And then there's one that goes into the tail, and that is the caudal artery. So these are the major arteries of the rat. We will be exposing all of these on Monday. Okay?